Now, Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
7-7, Brian Eamon, Brian Wilson with you. Katie McFarland, Fox News national security analyst, coming up at 8:06. And we'll also talk to Congressman Cory Gardner on the Energy Committee at 8:36 this morning. But right now on the phone, our friend STUART VARNEY from the Fox Business Channel. Good morning, Stuart.
Hey, good morning, Brian.
Well, you know, the Dow's still hanging in there. I know there's a new jobs report coming out on Friday. The ADP number looked pretty good. So have we stabilized here? Are we moving in the right direction, slowly but surely?
You mean the economy?
Yeah.
I've got the contrarian opinion on this.
Really?
In each of the last 2 years, we've heard talk of green shoots. The recovery is upon us.
Right.
Here we go, boys. Everything's fine. In each of the last 2 years, those green shoots have been trampled on. And I think the same thing is about to happen again. It does look at this point as if the recovery is okay. We're expanding a little bit. I think we're about to head south. Not huge, not towards recession, but I think the tide is about to turn.
What's motivating that?
I think, gas prices are going to have an effect, and an effect very soon, I think. Secondly, we saw a sudden and sharp downturn in orders from factories. Now, that was unusual. It was a big downturn. It wasn't expected. I've just got a report in my hands, just came in, actually, that the number of layoffs up 18% in the first 2 months of this year compared to the same 2 months last year. So I think we might be in that same turning point situation, right on the cusp of it, where this recovery is about to flounder all over again.
So a triple dip.
Well, yeah, not to recession, but a triple disappointment, put it like that.
We just can't get over the hump for one reason or another.
We should, by now, 3.5 years after the end of a recession, or certainly a full 3 years, we should be have reached a point at some stage where we get 4, 5, 6% growth, where we're just booming, and we haven't. We just look like Europe. Very slow growth, massive debt, sluggish economy, high unemployment. We've not broken out of that yet.
So that, not only does that have economic repercussions, and you've just ruined my whole dadgum day. I just want to mention that, Stuart. Thanks a lot, pal.
I don't want to get the reputation as bad news, Stu. I really don't. Because Brian, you were right to start with. The stock market is holding up pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's because American companies are making a fortune overseas. That's the problem here. Stock market looks good. America's domestic economy, in my opinion, about to head a little south.
But that has economic ramifications. It also has political ramifications.
Yes, it does. I mean, if this campaign at some point becomes a discussion of President Obama's record, and it hasn't yet, but when it does, that record will not look particularly rosy. And you're right. I think it's got negative implications politically for the president.
It's always been said that we had like $1 trillion, maybe even $2 trillion just sitting there on the sideline, and people and companies were, filled with cash. And that perhaps what we've seen in the stock market is more people are actually getting in to the market. Do you think that is the case, or is that cash still sitting on the sideline?
No, I don't think it's the case. The cash that you're referring to is corporate cash, which is being held overseas. Because if it's brought back to America, it pays a 35% tax rate. I don't think the small investor has come back to the stock market, and I think it's been a downtrend away from the stock market for 10, 12 years. If you look at a basket of stocks back 10 years ago, it's about the same price as that same basket of stocks today. You really haven't got anything out of the stock market in the past 10 years, and the small investor knows it. They've left. I don't know where they've gone, but they've left the stock market.
Well, then what do you do if you really believe that's the case, and you're out there and you're exposed in the stock market? Where do you go?
Okay, I don't like giving investment advice, but I'm going to break the rule. I'm going to give it. What's wrong with big name American corporations that pay a 3, 4, 5% dividend? What's wrong with that?
Yeah. So like a good utility company or
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to name names, but you can go for big name blue chips that give you a solid, guaranteed 3%, which is much better than a bank CD, for example. I think we're back to where we were even 25, 30 years ago, where you bought a stock and you milked the dividend. You weren't looking for a massive run-up in price and a capital gain. You just wanted to sit back and milk that dividend. I think we're going to get back to that. Remember, Apple has $100 billion in cash. Microsoft's got $50 billion. These big companies, they've got tens of billions in cash. Now, what are they going to do with it? Buy another company or pay a dividend? I think they'll pay a dividend.
All right. What about gas prices? You're still in the belief that we're going to have around $4 a gallon gas for most of the summer?
Yes, I do think that. Today's price is a fraction down. So for 3 days in a row, we've gone down a fraction of a penny. That's not much of a decline. National average is now $3.75 a gallon. But we've not yet started to transfer to the summer blend, which will add maybe 20 cents a gallon. And the price of oil today is way up again. So I think we're going to resume the climb at some point soon. And, you know, if you look up and down the East Coast, West Coast, you're paying $4 a gallon right now.
Yeah, it's pretty close, for around here for sure. And I was out in California. It was well over $4. It was $4.30 in L.A. and San Diego.
Yeah, if you go to one of those gas stations near the airport where people take their rental cars back, you'll pay $5 for regular.
All right, the Secretary of Energy is going to testify on the Hill again. Last time he did, he sort of stuck his big foot in his mouth and said that he didn't really care about making prices for gasoline lower. What he really cared about was, trying to diversify our supply of energy. What do you think he'll say today?
Well, 2 consecutive days he appeared last week. First day he said, no, the goal is not to get lower gas prices. Second day he said, yes, the goal is to get lower gas prices. Maybe he'll try to straddle that fence today and come down on both sides of it. I don't know what he's going to say today. I think the man's in trouble. I think he's stuck with a 2008 mentality when we were still fighting global warming. Times have changed. I don't think Secretary Chu has moved with them.
All right, Stuart, it's always a pleasure, even if it is bad news, Stu, today. We appreciate it. We'll be watching this morning, 9:20.
Get my broker on the line, would you?
See you
Have
later.
a nice day, boys.
7:44 on WMAL.